Thank you for joining us from wherever you are. Let's begin from here this morning. The decision by Parliament to decriminalize attempted suicide has been hailed as a major victory for mental health care in Ghana by advocates and mental health professionals. Parliament voted on Tuesday to amend the law in a move that has been universally welcomed. My colleague Judith Archetando has been engaging some of the mental health advocates on the way forward.
It passed almost unnoticed on Tuesday. But as news emerged that attempted suicide will no longer be treated as a crime, the general reaction has been one of relief.
It will now mean that people can talk openly about what is going on in their mind and seek help.
That is Dr. Osei, the immediate past president of the Mental Health Authority. He was a big advocate for the law to be repealed.
What it meant when the suicide or attempted suicide was a criminal conduct was that if anybody had an issue of thoughts or contemplating suicide, he will keep it to himself because he knows that I might be jailed. So he'll not seek out for help.
The latest available data in Ghana on suicide dates back to 4 years ago and says there's a suicide mortality rate of 6.6%. In simple terms, close to 7 people out of every 100,000 people die from suicide. And out of the lot, more deaths are recorded in males than in females. Between the year 2020 and 2021, attempted suicide cases increased from 777 to 902, with persons between the ages of 16 and 35 years, the prime of the country's youth, the most affected. The Mental Health Authority blames relationship breakups, graduate unemployment, and financial distress as the leading causes, but advocates have been bothered for years about the lack of proper care and preventive measures for those dealing with mental health problems. Kobe Blay is a psychiatric nurse.
If you attempt suicide and you are not successful, you could be arrested. So very often, anyone who is attempting will make sure that they fully complete it. And that is where it's very important to provide an avenue where anybody who feels the need to die by suicide will rather be given an opportunity or be given the necessary help.
Section 57(1) of Ghana's Criminal Code says, a person who attempts to commit suicide commits a misdemeanor. Indeed, there's evidence of persons being fined and in some cases jailed for attempted suicide.
Why must you have a system that is so complicated that people with even mental health disorders cannot be catered for under our system? And that has been the status of our laws until recently. So what that meant was that if you were having some depressions and you want to, you feel like dying, what we are saying is that make sure you die. Because if you don't die, we will definitely come after you and we are going to prosecute you.
The law, which has been in force since 1960, is strongly associated with increased national suicide rates, as in other countries with similar laws. But advocates insist persons with suicidal tendencies must rather be given mental health support. MP for Medina Francis Xavier Susu is one of them.
There are several researches published even by the Ghana Mental Health Authority that shows that people who attempt suicide are people that have mental disorders. Because for a person to come to the decision to take his or her own life, most of them may be suffering from some extreme depression or some form of disorder. And so when those people are caught in the act, what they need is medical care and not imprisonment.
With the latest amendment, it would now be considered a mental health issue requiring assistance by law rather than a criminal offense. Advocates are convinced this will result in a drop in suicide cases.
At the end of the day, I expect that the incidence of people wanting to take their lives will go down.
To ensure that the law works, though, a lot more attention needs to be paid to the quality of mental health care, according to the Mental Health Authority. Judith Archetando, TV3 News, Accra.
Away from that, 3 persons are in the grips of the police over possession of firearms after a video in which they were seen brandishing weapons went viral. The police says they picked up the suspects following an intelligence-led operation at Japa near Wasa Ekropong in the Western region. The three, Godfred Appiah alias Nana Kobina Jan, Isaac Amwako alias Nana Owusu, and Theophilus Yeboah alias Fire, are seen in the video chanting and threatening violence.
Kai! Boroma!
And a statement by the Ghana Police Service with respect to the video you are seeing on your screen now noted that they've picked up all of the individuals in that video over possession of firearms without lawful authority and acts of vigilantism. Now, a search conducted at the residence of suspect Isaac Amwako led to the retrieval of 4 pump-action shotguns, including 24 rifled cartridges. However, he could not produce documents to cover the weapons. The suspects were put before the Tarkwa Circuit Court on Wednesday, March 29, and have been remanded into custody to reappear on April 6th. Now, there are calls for a review of Ghana's laws to ensure political parties can handpick a member of a party to replace any member of parliament who dies while in office or vacates his seat. 2020 elections campaign manager for the NPP, Peter McMenu, has been making a strong case for this provision at an IEA forum, and he says this will deal with issues of acrimony and violence, which usually characterizes by-elections in Ghana.
On the death of a member of parliament or a vacancy occurs in parliament, the clerk of parliament shall notify the electoral commission in writing within 7 days after the vacancy occurred, and a by-election shall be held within 30 days after the vacancy has occurred. United States is the mother of all multi-party democracies in the world. And I recall, or all of us will recall, that in 2008, when President Obama, as a senator, was elected as president in December, his seat as a senator was filled by the Democratic Party. It wasn't filled by a by-election. So we are saying that when a person dies, or for whatever reasons, resignation, the party that brought him into parliament during the general election must be given the opportunity, like the United States does, to replace him, so that the acrimony, the costs, etc., associated with by-elections will be a thing of the past.
Peter McMenu, the World Executive Director of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs, Dr. Rashid Rahman, says the call for a constitutional review on this subject of handpicking a party member to replace a deceased MP or one who has resigned is in the right direction. According to him, a much bigger conversation is required on the subject, even though he agrees such an arrangement could lead to cost-cutting measures and also the violence that characterize by-elections.
Our Constitution doesn't allow that, and a call for the revision of the Constitution, I think, is in order. But I don't know whether, the whole electoral system will need to be revised. Otherwise, in terms of cost, in terms of cost, first of all, financial, in terms of cost to Ghanaian lives, because we've seen what happened at the Iowa-Wogon by-election and all the consequences and so on and so forth. So it's a call in the right direction. I don't know what is needed. Whether just simply tinkering with the Constitution is enough, or we have to go and touch our electoral system. I think there are many who have called for some changes to our electoral system to, for instance, move away from this first past the post to maybe a proportional representation kind of system, because, at the moment, at the end of it all, when votes are counted, we have to deal with an NDC or an MPP candidate. But perhaps if we move to a proportional representation system, maybe we might have some of the other forces having some representation in parliament. So beyond just simply that issue of replacement in by-elections, I think there's a much bigger conversation about our entire electoral system. Otherwise, we are going to be stuck with these two giant parties, and they can only grow bigger, maybe except if one of them falters and there are very deep cracks and it ends up being broken apart into pieces.
Dr. Rashid Rahman there, he spoke to Alfredo Kante on Ghana Tonight. Ghana Tonight airs every weekday at 10 p.m. here on TV3. Now, a member of a University of Ghana communications team and a professor of political science at the University of Ghana, Professor Ransford Jampo, has challenged members of parliament over their comments on the Commonwealth Hall student saga. According to him, the lawmakers' comments suggesting that the university acted in contempt of court is regrettable and an exhibition of ignorance.
The University of Ghana Council is not disregarding any court directive. It is important that members of parliament get their facts right on this particular issue, and it is shameful for a few members of parliament who have had association with the Commonwealth Hall to peddle falsehood just to do the bidding of some people who are not members of the university community, who are done with school and are trying to drag the name and image of the university into the mud. It's quite shameful, and so it's not all members of parliament. Look at the background of those who spoke. No court has given a directive that has been flouted by any university council. It is important that they do not involve themselves in peddling falsehood, because it is an honorable house. I do not see why the whole parliament would allow its platform to be used by a few disgruntled people to be peddling falsehood. The university is implementing a residential policy that has been approved by all channels and structures within the university, including its council. Some people feel that they don't like residential policy that is being implemented, and so they've taken the university to court. The court gave a ruling that we should halt the implementation of our residential policy. By the time the ruling came, we were already done with the implementation, and students had been admitted into the hall. It was going to be difficult for us to throw the belongings and luggage of the students out of the hall. And so immediately we filed an appeal and a stay of execution of the ruling that had been given.
Now, some politics businessman Ernest Korbia has withdrawn from the National Democratic Congress's flag-bearer race to back former President John Mahama. The remaining three aspirants have been cleared to contest the party's May 13 presidential primary after selecting positions on the ballot.
Kojo Bonsu took his turn at the vetting committee on Wednesday.
I was asked about the economy, our Social Democratic Party tenants, and how I would rule Ghana. My tenure in office in Kumasi. It's not easy to go through such a vetting, and I think I'm so confident and I trust myself that qualified to become one of the people to lead NDC.
It was then the turn of Ernest Korbia to complete his vetting after he met the committee on Tuesday and was asked to bring other documents. But the businessman appeared not interested in the contest anymore. He had brought a handwritten letter to the committee informing the panel of his decision to withdraw from the race.
It's not I'm pulled out. I give you my support to JM. And it's a good decision for our lovely party to move further for future. We are not wasting anybody's time. And it's the best decision I took for the party.
The vetting committee, led by a former Speaker of Parliament, Edward Doe Ajaho, said the committee did not in any way intimidate the businessman.
This is the statement, and he said that it is voluntarily given. When he brought it, because of the question you've asked, we asked that they should indicate that it's a voluntary decision and not that he was intimidated. And he did that. And we call it Jorat it is here. That is a voluntary decision of his, because we suspect that somebody might think in that direction. If I should go further, his letter I say he has withdrawn to support JDM to win and save this country.
The three aspirants have thereby been cleared to contest the flag-bearer race after balloting for positions by their representatives. John Mahama will be number 1, Kojo Bonsu number 2, and Dr. Kwabena Dufo number 3.
All of them did well before us, and they all satisfied the conditions. If you look at the NDC guidelines, you have 1, you must satisfy the qualification and eligibility as prescribed in the 1992 Constitution. You have to satisfy the party constitution, and you must also satisfy the guidelines issued by the National Executive Committee of the party.
According to Edward Doe Ajaho, the Elections Committee is to take over with other activities in the run-up to the party's May 13 primary. Evelyn Tenkma, TV3 News, Accra.
And U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has promised over $1 billion to women entrepreneurship across Africa. The pledge would also include another $60 million in a Women in Digital Fund. She made this known as she wrapped up her 3-day visit of her country, Ghana.
On the final day of her Ghana tour, Kamala Harris had a mid-afternoon roundtable discussion with 7 women entrepreneurs. Kamala, who had delivered a resounding speech about women empowerment the day before at the Black Star Square, spoke about harnessing their potential in business without barriers. The 49th Vice President of the United States noted that countries greatly benefit if women are supported to lead and thrive.
The economic empowerment of women relates directly to the ability of that person to engage in innovation in a way that makes real the aspirations, the vision, and the dream that she naturally has. And of course, there's a direct correlation between policies that are directed at the economic empowerment of women and the general prosperity of societies.
She indicated that the U.S. government is set to invest billions of dollars as part of efforts to lift the economic status of women on the African continent.
Digital services are essential to 21st century economies. Yet there is a gender divide in the world. So today, to help address this, I am pleased to announce here with these leaders that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, together with our administration, will establish the Women in the Digital Economy Fund, which is a $60 million global fund. In total, these investments represent more than $1 billion.
U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris there, she's continuing her 3-nation African tour to Tanzania and Zambia. Now, hundreds of homes have been disconnected over illegal connection by the National Revenue Mobilization Task Force of the Electricity Company of Ghana. According to ECG, residents have deliberately bypassed installed meters to consume power without paying.
The electricity company extended its clampdown to Pambros in the Wager municipality of the Greater Accra region. It was easy to find households engaged in illegal connections. For the power distributor, it was time to fish out residents who had deliberately bypassed the installed meters to consume power for free. And to deal with the issue of community hostilities on the back of attacks on some task force members in Accra, the team was accompanied to the area by armed policemen.
On our revenue mobilization exercise, we came across this community last week, and we discovered that a lot of the households have bypassed the meters that have been installed. So there are a lot of illegal connections, and so we are here to disconnect help them and rectify some of the situations.
The errant residents will be cut off from the national grid, and not even these explanations by some corporates were enough to convince the team.
The meters that they brought to us, when it rains, it rusts. And the distance to the vending point is also too far. Sometimes you go to the vending point and they'll tell you the network is down.
The illegal worries a lot, and when the light goes off, no one comes to our aid.
When
you go to the ECG outlets, no one listens to us, so people find their ways.
The Electricity Company of Ghana has vowed to go hard on persons who engage in power theft and diversion of power lines to avoid paying requisite bills. And no matter who may be affected, the task force says it would go all out to recover the 5.7 billion cedis debt during the month-long exercise. Your neighbor may just be next. Emmanuel Samani, TV3 News, Wager, Accra.
And on the international front, key figures in artificial intelligence want training of powerful AI systems to be suspended amid fears of a threat to humanity. They have signed an open letter warning of potential risks and say the race to develop AI systems is out of control. Twitter chief Elon Musk is among those who want training of AIs above a certain capacity to be halted for at least 6 months. Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak and some researchers at DeepMind also signed on to it. OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, recently released GPT-4, a state-of-the-art technology which has impressed observers with its ability to do tasks such as answering questions about objects in images. That'll be all for our package here this morning. If you log on to 3news.com, you'll find a lot more stories there. I am Kamala Harris, handing over now to Roland and Bella for the rest of the show. Good morning.